Undiplomatic is an unscripted and unfiltered podcast hosted by Hyatt-Khan that will explore the intersection of business, politics and culture in Slovakia with a host of high-level guests across the spectrum telling their stories. Slovakia, back in the 20s, was the sixth largest economy in the world. So
yes, but what will be the unique selling point?
It would be, Czechs have lager, they have beer, they have castles.
Yes, but
they leverage that. They've leveraged their history very effectively.
True.
You go and speak to the Czech government and they say, we don't want to talk about castles. We don't want to talk about beer. We want to talk about Czech investments in Africa. Are there Slovak investments in Africa? Are there Slovak companies in Africa? No. People just don't trust politicians anymore here. How would you think about going to build that trust again for the people?
You have to be consistent in your messaging. When you're speaking to the public, when you're speaking in the media, when you're speaking to the business environment, they have to see what you said yesterday, it's still valid today, and most probably it will be valid tomorrow.
Why is there so much negativity?
If you're watching all the time TV or Facebook or Instagram, receiving all these negative messages, this is the
spiral of doom.
Focus on opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities, and you shall have a plan what you do, and I believe you shall be just brave to do that.
We are back today with a brand new episode of Undiplomatic, the podcast. I'm delighted that I have a guest who is a friend, someone who I admire because they dress well, someone who is very outspoken, often undiplomatic as well, which we like. A very warm welcome to Peter Blaškovitš. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So it's a great pleasure of ours. Now, the reason why I called together people from the business community at large, people who have a strong opinion about this country in various industries, is everybody has an important voice. You're an advisor to the minister, now the Minister of Economy. You were formerly head of the Slovak Innovation and Energy Agency. You did great stuff in the digital healthcare with the NCZI, in fact, 130 million online booking appointments, if I'm not mistaken, revolutionized online medical in Slovakia, and you've traveled the world as well. So that's enough of an introduction from me. How about you give me an introduction to who Peter Blaškovitš is?
All right. Well, so you spotted some things. Something I have to correct you. Currently, I'm the advisor to not the Minister of Economy, but the Minister of Investment, Regional Development, and Informatics. MIRI, yeah. Correct. So that's just for an edit at the bottom. But yeah, well, let me put it this way. I mean, I'll start like from my beginnings, as you're saying, my profile. Basically, I was in IT. That was my major, and I was in applied informatics. That was my master degree, which I held from the Slovak Technical University. After that, I had these small jobs as a programmer and this sort of stuff. Then, as you're saying, they started my period of traveling, traveling abroad. My first abroad country was Australia.
And you didn't have the accent, now Australian accent, mate.
No, I don't. It was just for 1 year, so I didn't get that. Yeah. I didn't that far. Maybe when I return.
Lucky for you.
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean,
our Aussie listeners, I'm very sorry if we've offended anyone.
I don't offend anybody.
Why do?
Anyway, you do. You can do that. Anyway, where I was appointed by some software company, so I did some software work, mainly as a program, later on some project manager. Then I moved from Australia to Austria. I don't know if I like the name, it's similar name of the countries. However, it was just a coincidence, obviously. So I lived for 1 or more, 1.5 years in Vienna, even though it's close to Slovakia, which is of course my home country. I worked as a technical consultant for a company, for a software company. Very quickly, then I get an offer from the Siemens in Slovakia. So I moved back to Slovakia and I started to work in Siemens in outsourcing. That time, it was basically a new branch or a new field of business, which was outsourcing, IT outsourcing. That was something trendy, let's call it that way, and that was something which was focused and needed some business development. So we did a couple of things, I believe, some successful projects. And after that, I was a head director of some of the business operation unit. After that, I got an offer to build a new telecommunication company in Kuwait, which was of course challenging, and it was like of course a big step and decisions like, yeah, you go and this is like a Middle East and this sort of stuff, and it's far, and this is a long-term contract, so I knew that this is not going to be for 1 year and this sort of stuff, so it's going to be for longer.
Can I ask you a question? We'll carry on with your story.
Yeah,
I just want to interrupt you. You're very few people in Slovakia that have made the move to the Middle East.
Yeah.
Traditionally, there's a very big chasm in mentality. Slovakia is very conservative. I'm not making any assumptions by saying it's a
but you are right.
In fact, so is Kuwait, very conservative in their own way. Was it a difficult thing to say to your family, to your friends, I'm moving to Kuwait? Because at that time, I don't think that many Slovaks or people from this region were moving to the Middle East. I mean, it was a bold move, right?
Yeah. Well, surprisingly, I didn't think of it from this way. Okay. I mean, it was
You saw the money.
not really. I mean, it's a part of it. I mean, like we all do jobs for the money. I mean, that's a reasonable thing. I mean, that's nothing to hide. Of course, the offer was great, and obviously that's a part of your decisions always. But it was the project itself. It was something new, and honestly, it was some leap of faith somehow. Of course, you know, you jump into that and you seek what comes out of that, and which was basically the same thing as Australia. I mean, yeah, maybe the culture-wise, it's closer.
Yeah.
But let's say geographically, I mean, that's
It's miles away.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to come back home for just to visit your your friends. I mean, you just really wish that you don't want to fly back and forth again.
It's a whole day.
It's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
So that this is another point. So, but backing on track. So basically, this was the motivation. So now your question was, no, I didn't have that kind of a worry.
But when you arrived in Kuwait, paint me a picture.
Yeah.
I've lived in the Middle East. I've lived in Dubai for 12 years. I've worked in Kuwait. I've worked in Qatar. I've worked in Oman. I've done the GCC. I love the culture, the Arab culture, because it's a little bit different. It's a little bit slower. It's a little bit, they say in Arabic, shway, shway.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
It's a different way of business. And in Europe, we're used to process, we're used to a little bit of A plus B equals C. And in the Arab world, it's kind of like you've got to do what you've got to do in their kind of way. Did you find that was a big challenge when you arrived in Kuwait, or did you just, again, go with the flow?
It was some time ago, so I have to remember a couple of the emotions.
You're young.
Yeah, first of all, you're young. Of course, you're much younger. And second of all, I have to remember, because it's about emotions, as you're saying. I mean, what are the first impressions and how you cope with that? And the first moment, especially the first half year, is kind of critical. Not critical, but this is where you're adapting a lot. So basically, as far as I remember, it was like you stepping out with your kind of way of doing things, which actually I was lucky, because our investor, which was one of the largest investment groups in Kuwait and actually in GCC itself, they liked this way of approach, and this was actually the reason why they hired foreign consultants or foreign people just to do it this way. But true, the thing is that of course later on you somehow go with it, then later with the flow. And yes, I mean, you keep up with your work, but yes, the response time, let's say from another side, or from the opposite side of the investment group, or let's say another partners in telecom business, can be a bit of it slow. But
and what about the heat? I mean, it's hot.
Yeah, that's different. I mean, this. If you're asking a bit, like you started with the question, like what was the first thing when you step out of the Kuwait?
Yeah.
I mean, in Kuwait. I mean, I just remember. I mean, you go like you go airplane, you go still the tube, still you are in airport, it's still air conditioned, this sort of stuff. You exit, and then you realize like what is the heat of summer when you're talking about 50 degrees and the high humidity. Well, obviously you've been there, so you know that shock. So I mean, first maybe 2 days you're thinking only about that and nothing about the work. And anyway, obviously you're not starting the work from the first day. It's all the settling up, taking over your apartment and your personal things and this sort of stuff. And this was grateful, because the partner, my employer was really good, because in a way that they give you the time for that, for settle down, to organize your car and this sort of stuff. Of course, driving in GCC, you can imagine, in Kuwait was a bit challenging. So it's, first of all, I had to have a driver. It was not that easy, because step up in my car, I think I would cause the accident in a first minute. So by the time, so basically as time went on, so you domesticate somehow, and you adapt and you cope with that. You have, of course, you have to be like a kind of personality which is willing to do that. And because I had some before or previous foreign experience, that's why it was. Of course,
I know I'm staying on Kuwait here.
That's okay.
But it's fascinating.
I like to talk about it.
It's fascinating because there aren't that many people in Slovakia, I mean, who are aware of how difficult it is to work in the GCC. In fact, we have lots of companies that address us and say, help us do business in Dubai, help us do business in Saudi Arabia. But when you arrive, you really have to understand it's a different way of thinking. It's a different mentality. But did you get an opportunity maybe also to travel and see the ocean and you know, the proximity to Iran and the complicated history? I mean, there's a lot there in Kuwait. There's a lot there in the region that people, again, just don't know about.
Very true. Very true. About the traveling, I mean, I'm not sure now if I say this was a benefit or not. From beginning, it was definitely a benefit. Later on, it was more a headache. But the thing is that the project was basically a telecom company, which was basically interconnecting all the GCC countries, right? So basically all the GCC countries, which is basically Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, and Bahrain, I think.
United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, exactly. So these countries. So basically my job, and mainly my job, and the latest stage of the project, it was a greenfield investment telecom, was mainly to negotiate the interconnection agreements. So that's why the traveling was my daily business. So definitely GCC was my field of operation. And in the free time, obviously, like, yes, you go here and there, you go other countries. It's either Jordan, I mean, or Oman, but the traveling in Oman, not just go to business
Sure.
and this sort of stuff. So it's a fascinating. As to the countries, you mentioned Iran, for example. No, this was not. I mean, you know, there are some, you know, that those cultural tensions and this sort of stuff, and Sunni Shia issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's there, and that was present that time. Maybe now in current situation is even more stronger, but it was always there. You know, just a small example. I mean, I know the many people in Slovakia, and only when there was a conflict in Kuwait, you know, we know it was a war in Persian Gulf, right?
And they call it the Arabian Gulf.
Well, exactly. And I came there and I said, like, you know, we are in Persian Gulf. When you say this in Kuwait, they almost kill you. They say, no, this is Arabic Gulf, right? So these are all the things. So I did travel the countries which I said. It was fascinating. Between the GCC countries, there are still some, even it's a very similar culture. But for example, the difference between, let's say, obviously UAE and Kuwait is different. I mean, UAE, it's going to the very open way. Kuwait is still keeping more traditions. They are more, let's say, tied to Saudi Arabia. And
you're right.
So these two countries are more closer, and Bahrain and UAE, they are a little bit different.
Actually,
for example,
there are quite a lot of similarities between the Middle East and Slovakia. I know that sounds a little bit surprising. It may sound a little bit surprising to our listeners and maybe even to you. The wealth is concentrated in small pockets by very few families, and then the rest of the people do the stuff, and everything is slow. One of the challenges that I found is that you find it's very hard to get things done unless certain people sign off. Here, as a foreigner working in Slovakia, I also find this process quite slow. You still need the chairman and the director or the managing director or the CEO to get things done. And then if you engage on a level below, or maybe even 2 levels below, nothing happens. That's exactly the same in the Middle East. The Slovak private sector also needs to develop, doesn't it?
Well, definitely. We can see that. I mean, obviously, like even in Slovakia and in the Middle East, but that's a bit different because, for example, here in Slovakia, I would say, or in general in Europe, I mean, it's normal to have let's say, foreign companies, right? So, for example, I mean, let's talk about. I would use the big names, let's say the IBM, and that's a good example which I will use. IBM is present here in Slovakia as IBM Slovakia, right? And it can have a foreign managers at the beginning, maybe later on they transfer it to the local management when there is a trust established and this sort of stuff, but still belongs, or the ownership is somehow the IBM, let's say Central Europe and then IBM US, whatever, I mean the structure. Of course, in the Middle East, it's a little bit different, and I will stick to the IBM brand because What I was surprised, for example, IBM in Kuwait, for example, it's called a GBM. It's a global business machine,
Yeah.
right? But the thing is, why they changed the name? Because the ownership, it's 100% Kuwaiti, right? So the IBM doesn't own there anything. They have just a special kind of agreement,
Sure.
which is basically the thing, because the environment is different. You need the locals. You need definitely the locals there, and basically without well-established local.
But you need the locals here too. So you see Volvo, you see Jaguar Land Rover, you see all the car companies coming here getting huge tax concessions, big tax concessions, getting land for free.
Yeah.
That's the local government saying, here you go. We'll let you do what you need to do, but you prop up our FDI reserves and you employ our people. It's similar.
Not to that extent, because here in Slovakia or in Europe, we're talking more about, let's say, the workforce, the vast majority or the majority of the workforce, which is the same as in, for example, Middle East. You know, all the workers are from the abroad, the countries. Usually, the people in Middle East, they are on a higher position, not on the positions of, for example, the workers and so stuff. In Europe, it's different. I mean, those people are working on different level of the positions, but so the government is of course encouraging and basically supporting the foreign investment. I'm talking about here in Slovakia, by exactly the incentives related to the how many people, for example, you employ. But still, it doesn't matter that the management, it can be combined. So that's what I'm saying. But there, the top management, let me put it this way. I mean, there is a very strict difference between the board and the executive management. And that's all. I mean, you just look to any website of Kuwaiti or Saudi company and this sort of stuff. And you see very well that the board are basically the people, usually some of them are from the royal families and wealthy or members of the parliament and this sort of stuff. And the executive team is usually some kind of foreigners as well, combined with Kuwaitis or Saudis or Omanis or basically, or Bahrainis, doesn't matter.
So we took a detour from the Middle East. Now we had a nice flashback from your time, and I can see from the way you speak, it's still a period that you enjoyed and an experience that I think you will cherish for life. What brought you back? Why did you want to come home at this stage? Maybe the end of your contract, but also maybe you felt like there was a desire to come home.
It was combination of both. It was basically yes, the contract was basically over. I had an offer to stay. Okay, I have to say, but that time, even here in Slovakia, I saw some changes. Even the political and the country is growing and sort of stuff. You know, my family is still here. I mean, my parents, my sister, and you know, you have all the, let's say, some kind of a base. It's still your home country, which I cherish and I admire. That, and to Slovakia, it will be still my home, and I openly saying that. So basically, it was basically in a simple words, I came back to home. That was the reason. So after some time, you say, you know, you reach to the age where you said, okay, it's time to come home. And basically, I do believe, maybe that will sound maybe very poetic, but
please feel free.
But however, I said that maybe there is a time that all those experiences which I talked before, just even abroad, I mean, maybe it's a time to use them here for the local interest.
Well, I've been on the road for 16 years now, 17 years nearly, and Slovakia has become my adopted home. I've always wanted to move back to London. Part of me wants to move back to London. And then now I found myself involved in Slovakia in a way that I feel like I'm helping your country. And there is immense reward in that. Some people may not see it, but we certainly feel that we're making a difference here. This is something you're also passionate about. You're very outspoken in the media. You're very good at self-promotion as well.
Thank you.
Which is something we admire within the community. But you've got this in your mind that you want to help your country. You speak ill of your government quite frequently. You've had maybe a little bit of a fractious relationship with the former Minister of Economy when you left the Slovak Innovation and Energy Agency. Some say it was controversial. I don't know. You feel it was controversial?
Depends in which way. I mean, look.
Are you embarrassed with the way the political situation is now in Slovakia?
Well, definitely.
Revolving door.
Well, this is for sure. So, if I would put it more general, not from my personal, let's say, from my personal experience, because that's something very little in the, let's say, we're saying a drop in a sea. But the general point, yes, it is very true. I mean, what is now currently the situation? Now I will be speaking only about the business environment. Okay, I don't want to go into the political things which are related to any other, let's say, fields, which is now currently what we see some.
Is that because you feel yourself going to be a politician at some point?
Well, I don't know. I cannot say, and never say. I never was.
You've never hidden from that.
This is one thing, and of course, as well as before, if somebody asked me, are you going to go Middle East? I mean, like 1 year before I went to Kuwait, I would say, definitely not. No. And I ended up.
But there were images of you outside the parliament saying, "This is what the economy should look like. This is what I will do to help fix the economy." And you do it from the passion of your heart because you want to help your country. But that's also linked to your own personal ambition. I mean, we can't run away from that.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, and I'm open to that, of course. I mean, like, I do believe that I generally do believe. I mean, in the leadership positions in generally, I mean, this country definitely needs a people which are open-minded, but not only open-minded, which they have a really
track record.
They have a record. They have experience. They know the negotiation. They know the tactics. They know how to manage the things and this sort of stuff. I mean, I tell you example. I mean, I tell you just a small example. For example, Minister of Health. Let me put it this way. I mean, it's a very common tradition that it shall be a doctor, and usually it was. I mean, only to some exemptions. Which I don't think so. I mean,
should be an administrator.
Yeah, I mean, the minister shall be. I mean, some person which understands the whole environment, which doesn't need to know how to be a doctor, how to operate this sort of stuff, but how to manage the whole environment, the whole ecosystem of the healthcare, which mean the financial things, how to finance the health insurance, how to distribute it well, how to be that the hospitals will be not in loss, and for example the public insurance company, the Všeobecné zdravotné pojištění, will be not in the loss, and all this sort of stuff. So coming back to that, it basically means that I truly believe that this country needs it needs a new leaders. It needs a new people.
Were you disappointed that you were not nominated as a minister?
No, not really.
Because it was leaked. I think it was a couple of websites.
There was something. Yes, about that. Not really. And I'm working in the public sector. I mean, in governmental, let's say in government service since 2012. I was a member of the board in Slovak Post, and the Director General of the National Health Information Center for the e-health, and then the Slovak Innovation Energy Agency. So basically, this is coming from 2012. So this gave me enough experience how, let's say, this world works, right? And basically, this world works in a way that every day it can be your last day. It's as simple as that. I mean,
there's no guarantee of continuity.
There's no guarantee of continuity, exactly. And now we can see if this is a problem, or if it's not. It can be discussion. It's a large discussion. I have many discussions about this. And yes, my opinion is that there is a problem in continuity. I mean, we have some. I think
there are people that say that a minister should be just like someone who oversees, and then the civil servants, the difference between politics and policy should be always established. And then the people under you in the ministry should understand what needs to be delivered on policy level, and then the minister navigates the politics and a little bit of oversight.
I can more than agree with that. But the thing is that we have some...
but there's too much nepotism here, right? Lots of friends have jobs. You can't kick them out. There's old-fashioned systems.
It's old-fashioned systems. You have to go with that. And in many cases, and I'm speaking from my own experience.
Sure.
I mean, sometimes you have to put the things on a corner. I mean, saying like it's either that or me leaving. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the points that I do believe in a public service. I mean, in governmental service, you shall be not stuck to your job for any cost. And this is important. And I do believe that vast majority of the people now standing in those jobs are there just to hold their jobs. I mean, like really. I mean, I want to be minister, state secretary, or whoever, even director general of some companies which are under, for any cost, just
to have
keep
the title,
either the title or whatever the benefits coming out of that. It's either the salary, of course, or the car. I mean, it doesn't matter, or some even public, let's say, honorability or some recognition on this sort of stuff. But this shall be not the point. The point always shall be the goal which you want to achieve, and what is basically the reforms and what you are doing, either in the Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Investment, Ministry of Healthcare, and this sort of stuff. So I do believe when the things are getting out of the hand in a way that you, for example, you are forced to start some decisions or some moves which are not related to your strategy, okay, and to how you understand it shall be developed, then I believe you shall be considering that. Okay, then in this case, I'm not able to function in this environment, and you have to put it on the corner. So either it will be like this or that. Of course, this is very black and white looking.
Of course.
But there is a gray zone, which is this is the way you can always negotiate. I mean, it's possible. I mean, you can do the things that, okay, fine, let's do it this way. I understand that sometimes the political, let's say, homework, as we call it, but it must be always reasonable, or it must make sense.
Domatsa ulahu.
Yes, kind of this sort of stuff, but in a way that which I do believe is all these things you have to do in a prior that you take the position. And this is very important, where I can see that don't join the high-level state positions before you had a talk with your superior. It's either prime minister or it's let's say, head of the party, which is having this ministry under their wings. Let's put it this way, in the coalition government, and let's be in line with the goals which the party and the political thing is. And once you agree with that, and in the beginning you set up your own, let's say, for example, I want to have a freedom in nominations in my places, or these are my priorities in a field of, let's say, economy, this sort of stuff. So do it at the beginning, okay, and then later on stick to that. So don't change, but keep it in both ways. So don't let people push you to changing the directions, and you keep your it's still consistent.
As a foreigner, it's very confusing because civil servants are paid by taxes from the people.
Yes.
So they owe us a service. I pay my taxes here and I don't get a vote. So I have an opinion on the political landscape, and it's scary. I don't know what the elections will hold in October. I don't know if a government will be formed easily. It's probably unlikely. Now you see people who insulted parties before in previous years, and then they join them now.
Yeah.
And I see this is becoming a very common thing. Do you feel that people just don't trust politicians anymore here? And if you were to take a more important role in government, how would you think about going to build that trust again for the people? Because it doesn't exist right now.
You are completely right. I mean,
I never hear that at home, by the way.
Right. I mean, it's completely the thing. It's right, because actually the past, I think I would really say the past, mainly 3 years, and of course I understand there has been crisis. I mean, Corona, energy, inflation, the war, and this sort of stuff. Of course, these are all the things, but we see other European countries, and I don't believe that least trust in the politicians and the leadership, okay, of the current country is any worse it's much worse than any country. There is not. I mean, here it's really bad. I mean, the people really, they have enough of all the, let's say, confusions, of all the disagreements and this sort of stuff. And this is really this game that the trust is zero. I mean, that's usually when you come to the people, and I'm talking now, for example, even small, medium, large businesses, and I'm talking to these people, I'm in contact with even the large entrepreneurs in Slovakia, locals one. They're saying, I mean, this is not the environment for us, and this is a really huge risk. That, for example, we think to move the companies, for example, to the Czech Republic
or
and
to Hungary.
Or to Hungary, as well. They have still good environment, tax. We are welcome there. There is a more stable and very clear and transparent legal environment. This sort of stuff. To your question, what I would do or how to gain the trust is basically. It's related to thing which I said at the beginning in the question. What you have to do when you're joining the role. So clear up your priorities and your targets and stick to them.
Set some metrics.
Set some metrics. set what you want to achieve, and stick to it. Be constant. Okay, I understand that it can happen that your surrounding, let's say, surrounding things are changing. Okay, so changing the conditions
Like
you work in.
COVID.
Yeah, COVID. You have to adjust.
Yeah.
That's fine. You have to adjust in some cases because the world is evolving, the Europe is evolving. There are some new events which are happening, some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant. So you have to be still some kind of flexible. But to your core values and the goal, what you want to achieve, you have to stick to that. Okay, and this is very important. So to gain back the trust of the public, you have to be very consistent. You have to be consistent in your speeches,
your messaging.
in your messaging, when you're speaking to the public, when you're speaking in the media, when you're speaking to the business environment, they have to see that what you said yesterday, it's still valid today, and most probably it will be valid tomorrow, and not most probably it will be valid tomorrow. This is very important. So I believe this is very important part in gaining back the trust.
And then you mentioned the SMEs and the large entrepreneurs. To me, the bloodline of Slovakia is the SMEs. I'm very fortunate in my other role and my other hat that I get to engage actively with the private sector. And they come here, and a lot of the directors and senior management say, oh, well, we have to wait till the elections. And it blows my mind. I'm like, why do you, a private organization, care about the elections? If you have a robust private sector, you put the government to one side. You need them for the big things. But this is where my curiosity, and no one's been able to give me an answer, is because Slovakia is a smallish country, compact is the nice euphemism that people use, 5 million people, but it's full of opportunity, and it's full of talent, and it's full of innovation, and it's full of really interesting businesses. And I always say to them, why do you need the government? Why do you want to wait till elections? You want to go to Kuwait? I know a guy that worked there. He's speaking with me today. You want to go to have opportunities in the USA? We can make that happen. We can help you on that journey. Don't wait for the elections. Business shouldn't stand still, is what I'm saying.
It's correct what you're saying, but I'll try to put my opinion into that. Why is that?
That's why you're here.
The thing is that businesses, either SMEs or the large enterprises, it doesn't matter. They cannot really coexist without the government support. I mean, now I'm not saying the support in a way of giving some money or incentives, this sort of stuff, but of creating the stable legal environment. Okay, so I understand what I can do, what I cannot do. I understand, for example, what my taxes will be, not from 1 month now, but from upcoming 1 year, this sort of stuff. I mean, we all know that the companies are planning, they're budgeting their next year. And I will just use the very simple thing is like basically, what about energy, right? I mean, we had the energy crisis, and it was so messed up that nobody knew actually what to do. I mean, I remember the last year, at the beginning of the last year, 2022, I believe, I do believe it was, or now, if I'm not mistaken, actually, it was basically, yes, it was 2022-23, basically, where like, I mean, nobody knew what's going to happen. I mean, the 1st of January, and look, you have companies that they need to work for the whole year, and they're doing the pricing for their products.
But can you imagine that people were turning around saying, we're very happy that it was a hot winter, so that the heating prices...
That's terrible. I mean, that's terrible. Yeah, well, yeah, no, exactly.
We're now waiting for climate change to help our bills.
Well, exactly. But then in this case, like in this case, it's the same thing as we put the crystal ball in the middle of the table, and we do the planning based on that.
But I don't think Slovakia is alone. I think a lot of European countries...
That's true, but now we're speaking about Slovakia. 100%. So honestly, let's be honest. I mean... and maybe I put a little bit, I bite to another, or maybe side topic, which is exactly as you say now. Yeah, this is somewhere else as well, so it's okay in Slovakia. Look, this is another thing which I don't really go into that approach, okay? We have to be always better. I mean, this shall be our goal. I mean, if
Každý den lepšie.
Exactly, but lepšie to the others. I mean, why I shall be, for example, why I shall be comfortable with that, oh yeah, come on, the others, they have problems as well. No, I want to be better, right? I mean, now currently, if somebody will tell me, you know, now in some indexes of Eurostat, we are in many factors from many values, indicators, exactly. We are on the bottom, right? So that's very obvious. That's saying, oh, it's very bad and sort of stuff. But what will happen if whatever future government will come and like this, and they say, you know what, come on, we came into the middle, right? And there are 6 countries behind us. I mean, this shall be not our goal. Our goal shall be the number one.
Yeah.
I know it sounds very
unrealistic,
but why I shall not have that goal? I shall have that goal, and I shall do everything to be first, maybe then second, third, to be on the highest positions. So being comforted by the things that, the others, they have a problems as well. This is not, for example, the way I do that.
Do you think maybe, and you can disagree with me, that maybe the mood here is also negative? I find that there's a lot of pessimism generally, and I don't know if that's legacy based because of history. Every day you live in Slovakia as a foreigner, you're reminded of the oppressive history. I get it. It's a complicated history. But at some point, someone has to wake up and think, we have to move on, right? Wow. We have to move on, and we have to choose an identity, and we have to choose a way to develop. How would you like to see? Why aren't people more optimistic? Why is there so much negativity?
Honestly, well, you're right, but I don't know. I'm not negative. I can say.
No, you're not. But
I know, but I can.
Are you not in the minority though?
Yeah, well, okay, fine, but this is what I can say it based on myself. I mean, like, yes, maybe I can see that the governmental representative, the leadership of the country. Let me put it this way: I will call it leadership of the country, because I don't want to say like that minister,
sure,
that political party. We're talking about the leadership of the country, right?
Or lack of leadership.
Yeah. Which is not in a good shape, and it was like, suffering for the past basically months when all the crises happen and this sort of stuff. And the result is, of course, the sooner elections and this sort of stuff. But the thing is that basically, I mean, like, starting to be, let's say, depressed, sitting home, watching all the time TV or Facebook or Instagram and receiving all these negative messages. This is a spiral of death. I mean, you
said it right.
I mean, you shoot
yourself. Spiral of doom.
Yeah, doom, and you shoot yourself, and or you leave the country, and this is actually the reason. So actually, I'm not psychologist, and so I don't have received like how to basically like overcome this. Okay, I can just say from my perspective is like, yes, you shall not focus only on the negative. Actually, focus on the opportunities. I mean, there are actually, exactly as you said, there's a lot of opportunities, and you shall have a plan what you do, and I believe you shall be just brave to do that. And we have many examples, and you know it well. You work with a lot of companies in export area, right? Which are young and small companies, startups, or companies which they are keen, which you're meeting the people, which they're willing to do business internationally, locally and internationally.
Sure.
And this is very important. So.
This is the heartbeat. To me, it's the heartbeat.
Exactly.
If there's a healthy economy, there are healthy people.
How to let's say, I don't know the recipe. I'm very honest. I don't have a recipe how to convince the other people. But I do believe only one thing, that it starts from the top. So if the leadership is optimistic and they giving you the messages that let's do the hope, we have a hope, we can do, and it's proven even by some positive steps, it will go slowly down, and it will open again the minds and hearts of the people to again be more optimistic and to recover from this.
And I think Slovakia needs more people that think like that, Peter.
This is important. This is the new leadership which I was talking about.
What I want to ask you, and a couple of questions. This one is one that floats around with me a little bit, and I've advised several governments across the world on different things. And you see that lots of countries in Europe have a brand. The United Kingdom is called Great Britain. It's a pretty good brand. Italy is renowned for its food, its holiday destinations, an array of things. Made in Italy, the brand is a mark. Spain, similar. France is the most visited place touristically in the world, if I'm not mistaken. The Louvre, Paris, all of these historical values. There are all brands that are linked with these countries. I've yet to find a brand that's linked to Slovakia. I ask all my Slovak guests this: if you could pinpoint Slovakia in a brand, what would it be? It doesn't have to be a tagline. You can say good people, you can say honest, hardworking people, you can say lovely mountains, but there's not something that you can sell the country internationally. What is the USP, the unique selling point of Slovakia?
Great you mentioned that. I mean, the USP of Slovakia is something what we are looking for past 30 years, unfortunately. And I'm not sure if you ever found it. Of course, my opinion is not. And that's why we are balancing between the things. So basically the brand, yes, we have, for example, we have agencies for that. Or we used to have them, we canceled them, then again, Slovakia Travel or Slovakia Brand, and we went to some other branding. Slovakia is a good idea.
Good
and this
idea,
sort of stuff.
Slovakia.
Good idea, Slovakia, exactly.
Before
this
it
sort
was
of stuff.
little big country, I think.
But there are slogans. I mean, that's
not really the
it's
heart.
not exactly. That's not the sustained point. I mean, it's really like what we are. Currently, what you can say based on what is the structure of Slovak economy and production, it's a car manufacturer, right? But obviously, we all want to some extent exit from that because it's a car assembly, not manufacturing. This is very important. We're not manufacturing
and
the
foreign
cars.
companies.
There are foreign companies, that's fine, but they are employing the local people, that's okay. And they have many suppliers which are Slovak companies. So this is healthy for the Slovak economy. But yes, car manufacturing, and that's okay if we would be manufacturing, but we are assembly, we are car assembly. This is very important to divide between these two words. So we don't want to be staying in a car assembly. We want to go into car manufacturing, car R&D, and this sort of stuff. But it doesn't necessarily need to be cars. Of course, there are many things, but one of the things which I came across, and it was for me, this is for example not correct, is a little bit to diverse even the portfolio of economy. I mean, we don't want to end up as Detroit, right? Obviously.
Absolutely.
So, and this is where it's the huge threat. So the thing is that, for example, there are parts of Slovakia where I know in effect that there are very high, for example, it can be incentives and this sort of stuff for foreign investment. If you're coming, for example, like let's say mid of Slovakia and this mid of south, the region of, Lučenec, Rimavská Sobota and this sort of stuff, right? This sort of region. But even traditionally, some of the regions are agriculture. Why we want to, let's say, push that down? Why I want to...
You're ready for politics.
No.
I can tell you now, that no one has been able to give me a 30-second elevator pitch to what Slovakia is. As a foreigner living here,
All right.
I go back to England, I speak with my family, and they're like, what is Slovakia like? We don't know anything about Slovakia. And that is an issue. Now, given that Slovakia has been a great neighbor to Ukraine during the war and has offered support on many levels, not just financially, but in terms of bringing refugees into the country, integrating Ukrainians, all sorts of military support as well, which has been controversial in some areas, of course. I know the truth because I live here on the ground. But if you went outside when you were in Kuwait or when other people are abroad, no one knows anything about Slovakia.
True.
So from my question always is to educated, well-rounded, global citizens of Slovakia, what is your brand? And no one's given me an answer.
Well, yes, because there is not an answer. That's what I'm saying.
Because you're talking about agriculture and SMEs and car manufacturing. These are all the economy driving the brand. I understand that. Making it a KPI-orientated country, I'm fully aware. I think that's right in many respects. You look at Estonia, Estonia.
Yeah.
You look at Switzerland, Swiss Army knife.
But the thing is, because
That's the second time we've mentioned the Swiss Army pen knife.
The point is that basically what you're mentioning is basically all those countries with the US with their own USP. What you mentioned, it's coming from the it's already there for a couple of or tenths of years, right?
And this is a young country, 30 years old.
This is not only that, but since I said that nobody, and I said it at the beginning, nobody was able to set up the USP for the past 30 years. So basically now your question, what you're asking me is that either I create it now, which is of course I can, I choose it because I can say, let's do the chip manufacturing. Yeah, we can do that and it will be our unique selling point, okay? But as long as we don't have that history, I cannot name it to you because there is no. And this is the point. That's the point. So,
but
that's
Czechoslovakia back in the 20s was the 6th largest economy in the world. So there
yes, but what would be the unique selling point? It would be,
Czechs have lager, they have beer, they have castles.
Yes, but okay.
But they leverage
yeah.
that. They've leveraged their history very effectively.
True.
You go and speak to the Czech government and they say, we don't want to talk about castles. We don't want to talk about beer. We want to talk about diversifying our economy. We want to talk about Czech investments in Africa. Are there Slovak investments in Africa? Are there Slovak companies in Africa? No.
No.
So the
no.
Czechs also realized that their history, which is linked to yours, that
But as well, actually, but you just maybe confirmed that what I was saying, because actually, like you're saying that exactly, you are not stuck to the lager, to the castles. You diversifying your economy, right?
Yeah.
And so basically stick to the one point as a USP. Okay, in Switzerland, it's a watch, diamonds, chocolate, let's say, right?
money laundering.
Money banks, let me call it financial sector. Let's be more diplomatic in that, or it's called either it's called diplomatic. All right,
yeah.
But let's
Money
financial sector. Anyway,
Robust financial sector.
robust financial sector. Yes, correct. And the point is basically that. So these are actually, if you think, if you yeah, exactly, and these are points. But if you think those USP or the countries which are known for as to the contribution to the GDP is not that large, right?
Yeah.
The lager in Czech is not contributing to the GDP of Czech Republic in such amount that this is what is the economy based on. This is just the brand thing, right?
I understand.
So basically what I'm talking to you that, or what I'm trying to explain is that either like let's call it, we can say we have a nice mountains. Okay, like high Tatras, that would be our unique selling points, and everywhere we can display.
But even if you have the high Tatras as your unique selling point, is it seen everywhere around the world?
No. It's and
not.
that's what I'm saying. But it's about the brand. But now the tourism in Slovakia will never contribute that much to the GDP. Okay,
but
as the car assembly.
But it can accentuate. It can amplify the brand.
It can amplify the brand, but it doesn't matter that, for example, I still do believe that it doesn't matter if high Tatras will be our unique selling point. That means that it will be securing our growth of economy. I tell you example. I mean, for example, Romania, right? What is the known? Of course, Dracula, right? I mean, everybody knows Dracula, but look at the economy, right? So actually, they have, let's call it, for something they are known. Okay, everybody knows Transylvania, Dracula, and this sort of stuff.
George
but
Hagi.
Yeah, but honestly, as to economy, it's not contributing. Mm-hmm. So it's one thing is to know, to have the own brand. Another thing is to be something more realistic, which is the economy. And me, I'm more concerned. Let's say I'm less the brand guy and more, let's say, the guy which like looks into the little contribution of the GDP and the growth of the let's say, the well-being.
You're right, Peter. You've convinced me. You sold me. You will be a good politician.
Thank you.
Now we'll finish up with a couple of personal questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Your wife, she's Moroccan or Algerian?
Jordanian.
Jordanian. How did she feel like integrating when she came to Slovakia? Does she like it here, by the way? Because
no,
she doesn't.
No,
it's difficult for a foreigner, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. It is. I mean, you know it very well, and yes. We are still kind of a close community. Yeah. That's for sure. I tell you, one of the things is, for example, it's a very simple thing. It's a language, and you know this very well. I mean, like English. I mean, here, even the young generation, they do speak English.
Yeah, the level is terrible. On a European standard, it's
fine,
terrible, yeah.
But they do.
Yeah.
But they are not willing to. It's something similar to France and these countries. Yeah. I do speak English, but I will not speak to you, right?
Yeah.
So this is one part, and the language, it is an important thing to be involved in the community. You know that very well. This is one thing. And this is even about getting the jobs. I mean, obviously, like when you go and you want to work, and you're not coming here to sit here, right? You are coming here as a valuable member of the society. A valuable member of the society means you are working, you're contributing into that, but it's hard to get a job because of the Slovak language, right? So this is one part. So there are some barriers.
Do you speak Arabic at home?
No. We do speak English, yes. But then each of us
because for me you don't have to sell Jordan. You see, talk about branding, Amman, Petra, the cradle of civilization. Yeah, I mean that's some serious history there.
Okay, true, but again I would use my logic to that. Let's look at the economy, right? I mean now we can compare and do the things. Yes, obviously if we are talking thousands years old monuments worldwide known. That's different than,
You've made a very compelling point for brand, not to confuse brand with substance.
Yes, exactly. That's important.
And some countries maybe perhaps get it the other way around.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. There's nothing I have left to ask you. If there's anything left that you want, you can ask me a question. If you really want, you can be as undiplomatic as you want.
No. I don't have. I can be undiplomatic as
We know,
always.
Peter.
I can do that, and I'm not sure if today. Maybe I was trying to be, but no. I was speaking very open in many things. No, for you not. I mean, today you are here for the questions. Maybe next time we do
it the other
something
way.
else. We do it the other way.
Well,
and I'm open to that.
I'm always happy to meet you, Peter, and you're probably the third or fourth best dressed man in Slovakia after a couple of guys.
After you. After you.
And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me on
Thank you very
Undiplomatic. It's been a pleasure. Peter Blaškovitš, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Undiplomatic podcast, brought to you by Hyatt-Khan.